Last episode, I told you about a period in my life when I shut off my emotions for 4 years. 4 years of pushing down every feeling that tried to surface. 4 years of going through the emotions. And if you're wondering what that exactly looked like, let me tell you, I felt nothing. Not sad, not happy, not anxious, just empty. Like there was a wall between me and everything I was supposed to feel. People would tell me good news and I'd smile and say the right things. People would tell me bad news and I'd nod and offer support. But inside, nothing. It was like I was performing emotions instead of feeling them. And the scary part, I got really good at it. So good that most people didn't notice. I showed up where I was supposed to show up and I said what I was supposed to say. From the outside, I looked fine. But I wasn't fine. I was completely disconnected from myself. And I didn't realize how bad it gotten until my grandmother died and I felt nothing. Standing there after hearing the news of her passing, knowing I should feel devastated, knowing I loved her, and feeling absolutely nothing. That's when I knew something was fundamentally broken. Not because I was broken, but because I had shut myself down so thoroughly that even grief couldn't break through. If that sounds familiar, if you've ever felt like you're watching your life from behind glass, present but not present, there but not there, this episode is for you. Welcome back to A Lot to Grow Through. I'm Artist, and this is where we grow through it, not just go through it. Today we're talking about emotional numbness, what it is, why it happens, and how to come back to feeling without overwhelming yourself. Because what I want you to understand right from the start is that numbness isn't a character flaw. It's not proof that you're broken or emotionally dead inside. It's your nervous system trying to protect you. And once you understand that, once you understand the why behind the numbness, it becomes a lot less scary and a lot more workable. So let's get into it. Emotional numbness is one of the most confusing experiences because you're not sad, you're not anxious, you're not anything, you're just absent. And people around you might not even notice. You're functioning, going to work, having conversations, doing what you need to do, but inside, nothing. So what is it? What's actually happening when you feel nothing? It's a form of disassociation. Disassociation is your brain's way of creating distance between you and overwhelming experience. It's a protective mechanism, a survival strategy. When emotions feel too big and too dangerous or too much to handle, your nervous system essentially says, okay, we're going offline. We're disconnecting from feeling because feeling this is not safe right now. And so you go numb. Now, disassociation exists on a spectrum. There are different types and levels. Mild dissociation, zoning out during a boring meeting, driving somewhere and not remembering the drive, feeling disconnected from your body, going through the motions on autopilot. Moderate dissociation, emotional numbness, feeling like you're watching your life from outside of yourself, like you're the audience instead of the main character. Everything feels distant, muted, not quite real. Severe dissociation, depersonalization, feeling like you're not real, like you don't exist. Derealization, feeling like the world isn't real, like everything is a simulation. Dissociative amnesia, losing chunks of time or memory. Today we're focusing on emotional numbness, specifically that flat, empty feeling where emotions are just unavailable. What you need to understand is numbness isn't apathy. It's not that you don't care. It's that your system is protecting you from feeling. Think about it this way. If you couldn't physically escape a traumatic situation, especially as a child, your brain learned to escape internally, to disconnect, to go somewhere else mentally and emotionally. If you grew up in an environment where expressing emotions led to punishment, abandonment, or more chaos, your nervous system learned emotions are dangerous. Feeling is not safe. We need to shut this down. So you did. You shut it down, and it worked. It kept you safe. It helped you survive. But here's the problem. That pattern can persist long after the threat is gone. So your nervous system learned when things get too intense, we shut down. It's safer to feel nothing than to feel too much. And so even now, when you're safe, when there's no active threat, your system still defaults to shut down when emotions start to surface. And if you're recognizing yourself in this, if you're realizing that numbness has been your default for years, I want you to know this isn't your fault. You didn't choose this pattern. Your nervous system chose it for you to keep you alive, and it worked. You survived. But survival mode isn't sustainable forever. And that's what we're here to work on. Now, numbness and depression often overlap, but they're not the same thing. And it's important to understand the difference because they sometimes require different approaches. Depression typically includes persistent sadness or emptiness, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy, changes in sleep, either insomnia or sleeping too much, changes in appetite, either no appetite or eating too much, fatigue, low energy, everything feels heavy, feelings of worthlessness or hopelessness, difficulty concentrating or making decisions, and sometimes suicidal thoughts. Emotional numbness, a dissociative response, disconnecting from feelings, not just sad feelings, but all feelings, may or may not include the other symptoms of depression, often directly related to trauma or chronic stress, feels more like absence than heaviness. You can function, but you're not really there. Here's where it gets complicated. Depression can include numbness as a symptom, and chronic numbness can eventually lead to depression. So they're not mutually exclusive, but you can have both. But you can also be numb without being clinically depressed, and you can be depressed without being numb. Some people with depression actually feel everything too intensely. If you're experiencing persistent numbness along with other symptoms, sleep changes, appetite changes, loss of interest in anything, hopelessness, thoughts of self-harm, you should talk to a mental health professional about depression. Both things deserve attention and treatment. This isn't an either-or situation. And here's something important that often gets overlooked. Antidepressants can sometimes help with depression-related numbness, but they can also cause emotional blunting as a side effect in some people. So if you're on medication and experiencing numbness, don't just assume it's your trauma or your brain being broken. Talk to your prescriber. It might be the medication itself. I'm not saying don't take medication. Medication saves lives. I'm saying pay attention to how you feel on it and communicate with your doctor if something feels off. The reason I'm breaking this down is because understanding what you're dealing with helps you know what might actually help. If your numbness is primarily a trauma response, a dissociative shutdown, then trauma-focused approaches are going to be most useful. If your numbness is part of a depressive episode, you might also need to address the depression itself through therapy, medication, lifestyle changes, or all the above. And if it's both, then you're working on both, layer by layer, with support. I know this might feel overwhelming, like there are so many layers to untangle, and yeah, they are, but you don't have to figure it all out today. You're just gathering information right now, understanding yourself better, and that's already progress. Let me tell you what those 4 years of numbness cost me, because I think it's important to be honest about this. I miss moments, so many moments. Friends would share exciting news with me and I congratulate them. I'd say all the right things, but I couldn't feel happy for them. The joy just wasn't there. People would go through hard things and reach out for support, and I'd show up, I'd listen, I'd offer what I could, but I wasn't emotionally present. I was performing support, not actually feeling compassion. I went through entire life events completely disconnected, present physically, absent emotionally. And the worst part, I didn't even fully realize it was happening until my grandmother died. Because numbness is sneaky like that. It creeps in slowly. You don't wake up one day and think, I'm going to shut down all of my emotions now. It happens gradually. A little more disconnection each day and a little more distance between you and your feelings. Until one day you realize you haven't actually felt anything in months, maybe years. And by then, you don't even know how to come back. You've been numb for so long that feeling seems impossible or terrifying or both. For me, it was both. When emotions finally did break through, they all hit at once. 4 years of suppressed grief, anger, fear, sadness, everything I've been pushing down came flooding back. And it was overwhelming, completely overwhelming. But it was also a relief because feeling something, even something painful, was better than feeling nothing at all. Living half alive, disconnected from yourself, going through the motions, that's its own kind of suffering. It might feel safer than feeling, but it's not sustainable. Not if you want to actually live your life instead of just surviving it. So if you're numb right now, I want you to hear this. I get it. I know why you shut down. I know why feeling nothing seems easier than feeling everything, but I also know what it costs. And I know it's possible to come back from it. It won't be easy or quick, but it's possible. And you don't have to do it alone. Let me continue my honesty with you. Numbness might feel safe, but it has a cost. When you're disconnected from your emotions, you're disconnected from yourself. I lived this. For 4 years, I was disconnected, and here's what I learned. You can't selectively numb. You can't block out just the hard emotions and still access the good ones. It doesn't work that way. When you shut down one part of your emotional experience, you shut down all of it. So yes, you avoid the pain, but you also can't fully experience joy. You can't feel love deeply. You can't feel excitement or hope or peace. Everything is muted and gray. And over time, that grayness becomes its own kind of suffering, a flat, empty existence where you're just going through the motions. You lose control. You can't be truly intimate with people if you're emotionally unavailable. You might have relationships, but they're surface level. You're there, but you're not really there. You lose your internal compass. Emotions are information. They're a part of how you navigate the world, how you make decisions, how you know what's right for you. When you can't feel, you can't access that guidance system. You're flying blind. You lose yourself. If you don't know what you feel, you don't know who you are. You become whoever you think you're supposed to be. So you perform, you adapt. But underneath it all, you have no idea what you actually want or need. You lose presence. Life is happening, but you're not in it. You're watching from a distance, and you can't get that time back. Now, I want to be clear that healing doesn't mean feeling good all the time. It doesn't mean you're suddenly happy and grateful and at peace 24/7. That's nothing but toxic positivity. Healing means feeling, being present and alive in your own life with all that messiness that comes with it. It means being able to feel sad when something sad happens, being able to feel angry when a boundary is crossed, being able to feel joy when something beautiful happens, being able to feel scared and still move forward anyway. It means having access to the full range of your emotional experience, not just the acceptable ones. And that requires reconnecting to emotions you've been avoiding. I know this might sound overwhelming right now, especially if you've been numb for a long time. The idea of feeling everything probably sounds terrifying, and it definitely is. I'm not going to lie to you about that. But we're not asking you to dive into the deep end. We're going to start small. We're going to build your capacity gradually, one step at a time. All right, so you're numb. You've been disconnected from your emotions. How do you come back without overwhelming yourself? First, let me say this. If numbness is protecting you from something you're not ready to face, don't force it. Sometimes numbness serves a purpose. If you're in a crisis, in an unsafe environment, or barely holding it together, numbness might be what's keeping you functional right now. The time to work on reconnecting with emotions is when you have enough safety, stability, and support. When your life circumstances allow you the space to feel. If you're not there yet, that's okay. You're not failing. You're just not ready. And that's valid. But if you are ready, if you have some foundation of safety and you want to start reconnecting, here's how to do it gradually and gently. I'm giving you 5 steps. Not all of them will work for everyone. Take what resonates, adapt what doesn't, and be patient with yourself through the process. Step 1, start with physical sensations, not emotions. Before you can feel emotions, you need to reconnect with your body. When you're disassociated, you're disconnected from physical sensation. So we start there. We wake up the sensory system. So here's some things you can try. Temperature, hold ice cubes, feel cold water in your hands or face, stand in the sun and notice warmth on your skin. The contrast of hot and cold can bring you back into your body. Texture. This is the one that works for me. I love textures. I'll run my hands over different surfaces, something soft like velvet or fleece, something rough like tree bark or concrete, something smooth like glass or polished wood. It's a habit I've developed. When I'm feeling disconnected, I'll intentionally seek out textures and just feel them. Notice the sensation and let myself be present with it. Movement, stretch, walk, dance, move your body and notice what it feels like. Not to burn calories or get exercise, just to feel your body moving through space. Taste. Eat something with a strong flavor, something sour, spicy, or sweet, something that demands your attention. Notice the taste, the texture, how it feels in your mouth. And while this works, you're not jumping straight to emotions. That's too big and too scary. You're starting with something simpler, physical sensation. You're telling your nervous system, hey, we're here, we're in a body, we're safe enough to notice what this feels like. It's gentle, it's grounding, and it builds capacity. So the texture thing, that's a real for me. I'll touch the fabric of my shirt or run my hands over a textured blanket or feel the grain of wood on a table. It brings me back into my body when I'm starting to disconnect. This happens for me subconsciously, not knowing I'm bringing myself back to baseline. Also, feeling textures create a ripple for me. I connect with texture. Sometimes it triggers a positive flashback, which then triggers an emotion or emotions. You see how a lot of variables are connected without trying? The beauty of our psychological makeup. It's small, it's subtle, but it works. And over time, reconnecting with physical sensation makes it easier to reconnect with emotional sensation because they're linked. When you feel your body, you can start to feel your emotions too. Here's what that looks like in practice. You notice you're feeling disconnected, numb, not quite here. Instead of ignoring it or pushing through, you pause. You find something with an interesting texture, a blanket, a piece of fruit, a plant, anything, and you just feel it for 30 seconds. That's it. You're not trying to fix the numbness. You're just reminding your system, I'm here, I'm in a body, I can feel. Now, don't expect this to instantly make you feel emotions, because it won't. That's not the point. The point is reconnection, building capacity, one small sensation at a time. Step 2, work with emotions first. Once you started reconnecting with physical sensations, you can start with emotions, but start small. Don't go straight for the grief about your childhood trauma. Don't try to process the anger you've been suppressing for years. Start with something mild, something manageable. And here's what I mean. So movies and shows. Watch something that typically invokes emotion. Not necessarily something devastating, maybe something heartwarming or funny or slightly sad. And just notice, do you feel anything? Even a little. There are certain movies and songs that get my emotions going. They trigger memories or thoughts that then trigger feelings. I don't use them as a crutch, but when I'm feeling disconnected, sometimes I'll intentionally watch or listen to something that I know tends to move me emotionally. Not to force myself to feel, but to see if there's a flicker, a hint of something. Music, same idea. Music can be a gateway to emotion. Put on a song that used to make you feel something and see if anything stirs, even the tiniest bit. Nature, spend time outside. Notice if you feel any sense of peace or calm or appreciation, even if it's subtle. You're looking for flickers, small moments or feelings, anything that's not numbness. And while this works, you're gradually exposing yourself to emotional stimuli in a controlled, safe way. You're testing, can I feel even a little? And sometimes the answer is no, and that's okay. You're not failing, you're just building awareness. But sometimes the answer is yes. You can feel a tiny spark of something, and that's huge. That's your system starting to thaw. I have a few go-to songs and movies that I know will get my emotions moving. I don't use them every day, but when I've been disconnected for a while and I want to check in, am I still capable of feeling? I'll pull one out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the practice of checking in, of being curious about my emotional state, that's what matters. So here's what this looks like in practice. You put on a song that used to make you feel something. Maybe you cry, maybe you don't. Maybe you feel a tightness in your chest. Not quite sadness, but something. You notice it, you don't judge it, you just notice. Oh, there's something there. Now, a common mistake I want you to avoid is don't force it. If you try to feel and nothing comes, don't beat yourself up. This isn't a test you can fail, it's just practice. Step 3, name what you notice, even if it's tiny. Once you start noticing flickers of feelings, whether physical or emotional, name them. This is the same practice we talked about in the Why It's So Hard episode, but it applies here too. Naming emotions, even small ones, helps your brain register, oh, I'm capable of feeling. It's just small right now. You don't need elaborate language. You don't need to perfectly identify what you're feeling. Just approximate. I think I felt a little bit of warmth just then. I felt slightly annoyed. I felt a moment of calm. I'm not sure what that was, but it was something. From my psychology studies, I learned about affect labeling. Putting words to your emotions reduces their intensity and helps your nervous system process them. But in this case, we're using it to build awareness, not reduce intensity. We're teaching your brain feelings exist. I can notice them, I can name them, and I'm okay. I categorize emotions in my head now based on learned knowledge and experience. I don't use a feelings wheel or write things down usually, but I do make a point of naming what I notice. Even if it's just internal, that's sadness, that's frustration, that's relief. It reinforces that I'm capable of feeling, that emotions are still there, even if they're quieter than they used to be. Here's what this looks like in practice. You watch a movie scene and notice your chest tightens slightly. Instead of ignoring it, you pause and think, what is that? Sadness, empathy? I'm not sure, but it's something. You don't need certainty. You just need to notice and acknowledge. Don't overthink it. Don't spend 10 minutes trying to find the perfect word for what you're feeling. Just pick something close enough and move on. The naming is the important part, not the precision. Step 4, be patient with the process. Here's something I learned the hard way. You can't force feelings to come back. I know it's tempting. When you've been numb for a long time, you want to fix it now. You want to flip a switch and suddenly have access to all of your emotions again, but it doesn't work that way. For me, accepting numbness didn't create space for feelings to return. It just kept me stuck. I accepted being numb because it helped me avoid feelings, not because I was being gentle with myself, but because I was scared of what would happen if I let myself feel. So I'm not going to tell you that accepting numbness will magically make it go away. That wasn't my experience. What I will tell you is this. Be patient with the process. Feelings don't come back all at once. They come back gradually, in flickers, in waves. Sometimes they come back and then disappear again. Sometimes you feel something and then shut down again immediately because it was too much. That's normal. That's part of the process. You're rebuilding capacity. You're teaching your nervous system that it's safe to feel. And that takes time. After my emotions finally broke through, I didn't suddenly have access to all my feelings all the time. I'd feel something intensely one day and then be numb again for a week, back and forth. It was frustrating, especially when I experienced an emotion. It was severe. A small cry turned into a massive outpour. But over time, months honestly, the windows of numbness got shorter and the windows of feeling got longer. It wasn't linear, but it was progress. And how this would look in practice is you had a day where you feel a lot. Then the next day, you're numb again. Instead of panicking or thinking you've lost all your progress, you remind yourself, this is part of it. I'm still learning. It's okay. Don't measure your progress day by day. Look at months. Look at the overall trajectory, not the daily fluctuations. Step 5, seek professional support. If you've been numb for a long time, or if numbness is seriously interfering with your life, I really encourage you to work with a trauma-informed therapist. I haven't personally done therapy, but from everything I've researched and learned, having a trained professional guide through this process makes a massive difference. They can help you navigate the hard stuff safely. They can help you build capacity without overwhelming yourself. They can give you tools specific to your situation. Therapies that are particularly helpful for dissociation and numbness include EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing, helps process traumatic memories, somatic experiencing, body-based trauma work, IFS, internal family systems, working with different parts of yourself. You don't have to do this alone. In fact, co-regulation, processing emotions in the presence of someone who's calm and regulated, is often easier and safer than trying to do it solo. Trust me on this. I know therapy isn't accessible to everyone financially. If that's your situation, look for sliding scale therapists. Many offer reduced rates based on income, community mental health centers, support groups. Many are free. Crisis lines when you need someone. 988 for suicidal or crisis. Crisis text line. Text HOME, HOME, to 741-741. You don't have to do this completely alone. There are resources. There are people who want to help. And how this looks in practice is you recognize that numbness is affecting your relationships, your work, your life. You research trauma-informed therapists in your area. You reach out. You start the process. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're serious about healing. Don't wait until you're in a crisis to seek help. If you're struggling now, reach out now. You don't have to be at rock bottom to deserve support. So let's bring this home. If you're numb right now, I want you to know you're not broken. Your nervous system is doing what it learned to do to keep you safe, and it worked. You survived. You made it through whatever you had to make it through. But survival mode isn't where you have to stay forever. When you're ready, when you have enough safety, support, and stability, you can come back to feeling. It won't happen all at once, and that's okay. It'll be gradual, messy, non-linear. Some days you'll feel things, some days you'll shut down again. That's part of it. That's the work. But every time you reconnect, even for a moment, you're building capacity. You're telling your nervous system, we can handle this. We don't have to stay offline forever. And slowly, gradually, life starts to come back into color. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's easy, because it's not. Coming back to feeling after years of numbness is hard. It's uncomfortable. Some days you'll wonder if it's even worth it. But it's worth it, because on the other side of numbness is presence, connection, the ability to actually live your life instead of just going through the motions. You get to feel joy again, real joy, not performative joy. You get to feel love deeply. You get to feel grief when you need to grieve, and anger when boundaries are crossed, and peace when things are calm. You get to be alive in your own life, and that's worth the discomfort of getting there. Small steps, gentle reconnection, with passion for how hard you've had to work just to survive. You're doing better than you think. If this episode resonated with you, I want to hear from you. Share your questions, your stories, your reflections. You can submit them in writing or a voice message by emailing letters@alottogrowthrough.com. I read and listen to every single one. If you want your submission shared on the podcast, please let me know in the email. Visit the podcast website at alottogrowthrough.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share. This podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And always remember, healing isn't linear, and you're doing better than you think. I'll see you next time.